Good morning children. Welcome back to your social science class. Today we are going to summarize the chapter Ashoka, the emperor who gave up war. The Mauryan Empire was established by Chandragupta Maurya around 2300 years ago. The Mauryans were a dynasty with three prominent leaders: Chandragupta, his son Bindusara, and Bindusara's son Ashoka. What is a dynasty? When members of the same family become rulers, one after another, the family is often called a dynasty. When members of the same family become rulers, one after another, and that family is often called a dynasty. Chandragupta was supported by a wise man named Chanakya or Kaudilya. Many of his ideas were written down in a book called the Arthashastra. Who was Chanakya? Chanakya was a wise man who supported and advised Chandragupta Maurya. There were several cities in the empire. These included the capital Pataliputra, Takshila and Ujjain. Takshila was a gateway to the northwest, including Central Asia, and Ujjain lay on the route from north to south India. Merchants, officials and craftspersons probably lived in these cities. Farmers and herders lived in villages. In some areas such as central India, there were forests where people gathered forest produce and hunted animals for food. People in different parts of the empire spoke different languages and ate different kinds of food and wore different kinds of clothes as well. Let's begin check how are empires different from kingdoms. Emperors need more resources than kings because empires are larger than kingdoms and need to be protected by big armies. They need a large number of officials who collect taxes. Emperors need more resources than kings because empires are larger than kingdoms and need to be protected by big armies. They need a large number of officials who collect taxes. Our next topic is ruling the empire. As empire was so large, different parts were ruled differently. The area around Pataliputra was under the direct control of the emperor. This meant that officials were appointed to collect taxes from farmers, herders, craftspersons and traders. Officials also punished those who disobeyed the ruler's orders. Messengers went from place to place and spies kept a watch on the officials. And of course, the emperor supervised them all with the help of members of the royal family and senior ministers. There were other areas or provinces. Each of these was ruled from a provincial capital such as Takshila or Ujjain. Although there was some amount of control from Pataliputra and royal princes were often sent as governors. Besides, there were vast areas between these centers. Here, the Mauryas tried to control roads and rivers which were important for transport and to collect whatever resources available as tax and tribute. What were the differences between tax and tribute? Taxes were collected on a regular basis. Tribute was collected as and when it was possible from people who gave a variety of things more or less willingly. Taxes were collected on a regular basis. Tribute was collected as and when it was possible from people who gave a variety of things more or less willingly. For example, the Arthashastra tells us that the northwest was important for blankets and South India was important for its gold and precious stones. It is possible that these resources were collected as tribute. There were also the forested regions. People living in these regions may have been expected to provide elephants, timber, wax and honey to mountain officials. Let's begin check about Ashoka, a unique ruler. The most famous Mauryan ruler was Ashoka. He was the first ruler who tried to take his message to the people through inscription. Do you remember, children, what do you mean by inscription? Writings on hard surfaces like metal, stone or bricks. So, he was the first ruler. Ashoka was the first ruler who tried to take his message to the people through inscriptions. Many of Ashoka's inscriptions were in Prakrit and were written in the Brahmi script. He was the only ruler who gave up conquest after winning a war. Ashoka fought a war to conquer Kalinga. Kalinga is the ancient name of coastal Orissa. However, he was so horrified when he saw the violence and bloodshed that he decided not to fight any more wars. He is the only king in the history of the world who gave up conquest after winning a war and become Buddhist. Let's begin check about Ashoka's Dhamma. Ashoka's Dhamma did not involve worship of a god or performance of a sacrifice. He asked people to practice the following things: being gentle with the slaves and servants, respecting one's elders, treating all creatures with compassion, giving gifts to Brahmins and monks. It is both wrong to praise one's own religion or criticize another's. Ashoka was also inspired by the teachings of Buddha. There were many problems that troubled him. People in the empire followed different religions and this sometimes led to conflict. Animals were sacrificed and slaves and servants were ill-treated. There were quarrels in families and amongst the neighbors. So, Ashoka appointed officials known as Dhamma Mahamata who went from place to place for teaching the ideas about Dhamma. Ashoka also sent messengers to spread the ideas about Dhamma in different lands such as Syria, Egypt, Greece and Sri Lanka. He built roads, dug wells and built rest houses and also arranged medical treatment for both human and animals. So Ashoka was considered as a unique ruler because he was the first ruler who tried to take his message to the people through inscriptions. Now we complete our chapter. All of you should read your textbook and complete your notes. Thank you, children.